I watched an atrocity happen in full view of an entire nation and a world based on a lie. And I saw the Christian flag. And I saw the cross. And I saw the American flag. And I saw Confederate flags. And I saw Don't Tread on Me flags. And I heard Christian prayers in the Senate and House chambers. And I thought, what are we doing here? Absolutely. And I have been trying to untangle that mess ever since.
You're not alone.
Yeah. Thank you. Let's untangle together tonight. When I was a child, I remember my grandma saying that there are two things you should not talk about with people. You're going to get in trouble if you talk about these two things with people. One is religion, the other is politics. So tonight, in honor of my grandma, we're going to talk about religion and politics. And not only that, we're going to talk about how they intersect, how they do and how they should intersect. I will say, because we live in a culture where people have refrained from talking about religion and politics,
and race,
I would argue, and race, it's left a void of wisdom in matters of politics and religion. So tonight, I ask you to bring your full self to this conversation as I do as well. When it comes to faith and politics, I think we have two general reflexes. One is a reflex of escape and avoidance. That the public arena is no place for religion. And given the spirit of this room tonight, I think that's very much a temptation for people in more progressive aspects of life in our culture. That because we've seen people who had the mic, we've seen how faith did go public and it turned our stomachs, that the reflex on the other side is that the public arena is no place for faith at all. But y'all, I would argue tonight that the separation of church and state does not mean separation of faith from the public arena, and the common good is not served when we think that way. Religion has contributed to public movements that have served the good. Do you remember? The Civil Rights Movement was birthed in the black church.
Amen, brother.
And before Martin Luther King Jr. was anything in this world, he was a black Baptist preacher. Think about that. The suffrage movement. This is a hard thing for me to say in this room tonight. I can't think of a single force in this world that has suppressed the equality of women more than religion. And that's something that is However, we must also confess that religion played a huge role in the suffrage movement. So can we recover that? I think about the abolition movement. The same thing I just said about women could be said about racism in this country. While we're talking about Baptists tonight, the biggest Protestant denomination in this country is the Southern Baptists. Yes. And one of my seminary professors says Southern Baptists are more Southern than Baptists. We have some history to reckon with along the way. Hospitals. In Little Rock, two of the largest healthcare systems are the Baptist Health System and St. Vincent. Faith-based, they were born as church movements. Our faith calls us to the public good. Jesus often talked about the reign of God. So I do not think the reflex that the public arena is no place for a voice of faith is good for any of us, nor do I think it bears the scrutiny of a historical view. I would also argue that sometimes that escapism reflex is a reflex of privilege more than it's a reflex of faith. Right? This is why the black church, writ large in this country, has never said, oh, it's religion over here and politics over here. They didn't have that privilege, right? That's been a white church privileged issue. So it's not escapism and avoidance. But there is a ditch on the other side of that road, which is when our faith becomes utterly entangled with government, where we begin to seek Caesar's answers to faith's questions, and where Christian folks begin to say yes to everything Jesus said no to in the wilderness. I do want to say tonight that religious nationalism is not particularly an American thing. It is the manifestation in this country is peculiar, but it's not limited to our country. Do you know that the Russian Orthodox Church has basically given their voice to Putin and sanctioned the movement of Russia in this world? That fascism is on the rise in places all around the world? You do know that Hitler did most of his damage in Germany with the predominant Christian voice in that country giving sanction and blessing to that work. So this is not only an American phenomenon, but in this culture it is on the rise. Christian nationalism is on the rise. You saw it on January 6th, 2021, which by the way was Epiphany on the church calendar. That word epiphany means revelation, manifestation. And I think what we saw that night was a revelation of a different sort. We saw it at the Tree of Life Synagogue in Pittsburgh. We saw it in Charlottesville. And we see it with the rise of hate crimes against all sorts of marginalized communities across this country. So the goal is not escapism, and the goal is not entanglement. What I'm arguing for is a very narrow path between those ditches, which is more engagement in the voice of faith. More engagement, but less entanglement. More engagement, less entanglement. To get us started tonight, I thought we would play let's have a game show.